And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the F1 Spanish Grand Prix fallout. As you can see here, very McLaren-esque thumbnail, very McLaren-esque headlines. Are McLaren back? I mean, does Max Verstappen fear McLaren? He's definitely got concerns. We'll also be talking about Alonso on a bad weekend for Aston Martin. Arguably the worst weekend in terms of pace for the Aston Martin team. Ferrari driver issues in Spain. Yep, Leclerc signs, let's just say they're not exactly going to be sending each other postcards, maybe even Christmas cards come the end of the year. Fred Vassar's getting involved there. Is it McLaren versus Red Bull now, according to the race? We'll be having a look at that interesting article. And also, how did Mercedes end up beating Ferrari? All this coming up in a second. Now. So let's talk about the Spanish Grand Prix. Fantastic by Max Verstappen, let's be honest. Yeah, a perfect drive. As perfect as Lando Norris's pole lap was on Saturday, I think it was Verstappen's drive. There was one tiny, 99.99%. He had that issue at the chicane, didn't he? But McLaren, is that a concern for Max Verstappen? And he's made a major declaration in relation to that. He's declared that Red Bull are no longer the fastest car on the grid, and therefore it's Max Verstappen making all the difference. Would he say that? He's the difference maker, who knows? But Verstappen did say that the team is operating really well, but is lacking when it comes to outright pace. That's his own team he's talking about. So as we know, he won Sunday's Grand Prix with a early and very much needed race pass on George Russell after George took the lead. Now, as the race strategy panned out, Norris ran longer than the Dutchman because he had to in the end after his not so good start and his failure in one way or another to get past George Russell early on. So the McLaren driver set himself up potentially for the win. It was, however, too big a margin to overcome, and Verstappen took the win by around 2 seconds ahead of Lando. But, and here's the killer, even Verstappen admits that were it not for his early pass on Russell for the lead, his victory would have been a lot closer. He said, very happy because I think what made the race was getting the lead on lap 2. And basically, the first stint, that's where we won the race. Now, with a gap I had to Lando, basically, since that first stint, he's saying he had to be really, really aggressive, and aggressive he was. He said they were definitely a bit faster today, better on tyres as well, which is significant because Red Bull has always been the tyre whisperer in their cars, and it was a really, really hot in Spain. So he said that they are better on tyres, and that is, of course, a little bit concerning. That's not what you like to see, but as a team, I think we operated well. We maximised everything we had. And Verstappen himself admitted he had to push right to the end, and it was at the end where his tyres were indeed going off, and he concluded by saying it's fine margins that can decide the outcome of a race, and that's exactly where we wanted to be these last 2 years, but we had the dominance really of Red Bull despite that early Ferrari charge in 2022. It's been all Red Bull's way. But Max Verstappen, I think, confirming that McLaren are very, very much an issue for him and his Red Bull team. Unlike Aston Martin, I mean, Alonso, he's come out and said Aston Martin needs to talk less, deliver more. Yeah, we thought the honeymoon was over come Japan last year with Aston Martin and Alonso. When it goes well, Fernando Alonso's lovely. When it doesn't, yeah, you maybe get a different Fernando Alonso, but he's grown up, he's matured. Fingers crossed. So Alonso, he gave essentially what was a frank assessment to Aston Martin's team performance in the Spanish Grand Prix, and has called on the team to talk less, and deliver more. So he finished what was a disappointing 12th and what was a disappointing weekend, and he pulled no punches in what was his post-race verdict. And it comes, let's be fair, after a very poor run from Fernando Alonso, where he has finished inside the points in only one of the last 4 races. When asked about the race result in Barcelona, his home race, he said, I'm a little bit disappointed because we didn't score any points. And hand on heart, I really thought he was going to. He said, we deserved not to score any points because we didn't have the pace the whole weekend. In the race, he says, it was extremely difficult when you slide so much in the corners. Also, you kill the tyres. So you have 2 problems. You don't have the pace, plus you have a lot of degradation. So all in all, it's been a very long race for us. We need to get better for us. And he pointed his finger at what was a lack of downforce on his Aston Martin, the AMR 2.4. And will there be more pain to come in Austria and Silverstone, adding that the team has to stop making claims of improvements and start actually showing them on the track, kind of like Mercedes over the last 2 years. So Fernando Alonso, strong words for him, and I think strong words for all involved at Ferrari at the moment, because where were they again in Spain? We all thought Canada was a blip. It wasn't. And then the drivers end up having a spat with Carlos Sainz hitting, in a way, Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc wasn't happy because it damaged his car. Sainz pretty much says Leclerc's whining, but then Hamilton does a similar move to Sainz and he whines as well. And then Fred Vasser's like, no, chill out. So, as we know, he's tried to calm this Ferrari spat, has our dear Fred. And Leclerc was left with a damaged front wing. He accused Sainz of trying to do something spectacular at his home race before telling the media, including PlanetF1.com, that the instructions had been in play, as per the article here. He said, we had a clear strategy at the beginning of the race with both to save tyres to attack later on. Carlos didn't do any saving in turn 14 and of course had the opportunity to take me in turn 1, which is a bit of a shame. As for the Spaniard, he hit back. I think it's too many times that he complains after a race about something. Eek. Yeah, so the strategy eventually went Leclerc's way and he did get back ahead of his teammate, crossing the line 5th and 6th respectively, something that I think they'll be disappointed with ultimately. So after this drivers' clash had cost Ferrari that 4th place, Vasser told the team, including PlanetF1.com, I think you can find 10 examples of 10 circumstances in the race where we missed half a tenth or half a second that were after when Carlos let him go. Also later on, we missed a couple of tenths during 2 or 3 laps. Let us discuss and not draw conclusion after the first comment of the driver when he jumped out of the car. Wise words from the philosophical Fred Vasser, absolutely. And he said he also downplayed the claim that the damaged front wing end plate had cost him a lap time. Now, from the data, we didn't see anything regarding issues on Charles Leclerc's car after the contact with Carlos Sainz. That's what he said. He went on to saying, I think it was more of a timing issue. Charles lost about half a second at that moment. Yeah, it's all go in the Ferrari team. It's going to get quite interesting, I think, over the next 2 races. So, is it McLaren versus Red Bull now? Are McLaren back? So I mean, even you need to even look at Fernando. Now I'm calling Lando Fernando. You even need to look at Lando Norris's. He said not could have won it, but should have won it. He said the car was incredible today, for sure the quickest. It was decided by a poor start. And as we know, that start allowed Max Verstappen and George Russell through, and ultimately Max Verstappen to win. But I mean, so Verstappen's decisive pass on George Russell really did help him win the race. And the Red Bull was good enough to then allow him to defend that position he'd put in. But no more than that was significant. Once again, Lando Norris, I think one of the most significant things wasn't towards the end of the race. It was after that first stop, going into that first stop when people stopped. At one point, it was Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Now, Lando had started on fresh new tyres. Verstappen's on slightly used. There wasn't that much in between them. You can even make an argument that when you put a heat cycle like Verstappen did through the tyres, they wear a bit better. But that wasn't the case, and Lando was taking fair chunks, out of Verstappen come their first initial stop. But the question posed by Barcelona was, how dominant are Red Bull going to be? And let's be fair, what is a very aerodynamic layout? So we put the answer, and I think now we've got it. McLaren were just as fast, if not faster, than Red Bull. But the Red Bull remained supreme in the high-speed corners, according to the race. And over a single lap on new tyres may even have been potentially slightly faster than McLaren. Lando Norris came out and said he felt that it was a Lando lap and not a McLaren lap that got in pole position. But McLaren does apparently look like the more flexible machine, according to Mark Hughes on the race. The one more likely to be a contender on every type of track. He said, I think we struggle a bit for optimum pace of Verstappen, and we are lacking good tyre deg at the moment. And that's really significant, because if you remember a couple of years ago in 2022 Austria, it was Max Verstappen and the tyre deg that caught him and really allowed Charles Leclerc to win that race. In my opinion, says Norris, they had a quicker car yesterday, but we had a quicker car today, which I think sums it up, which is interesting because Red Bull have always been known to be the quick race car. Now, by the time each had put around 15 laps on their tyres, the McLaren, as I already mentioned, appeared as much as 0.8 seconds a lap faster. Oh my gosh. So the Red Bull had stronger initial new tyre pace, but only slightly. So if Norris had won the start, I think he would have won. He thinks he would have won. Verstappen thinks he would have won. And so does McLaren and Lando Norris. But of course, it didn't happen that way. Max Verstappen did get the perfect start. So we are saying that potentially McLaren versus Red Bull over the next few races. What can Mercedes and Ferrari do? Well, as we know, Mercedes did beat Ferrari in the fight for the podium at the Spanish Grand Prix. Both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell confirming that upward trend for Mercedes. But are they truly back? So we had a really positive qualifying session where they pit Ferrari, but it was by just 30 thousandths of a second. It was so close, you could even say you do that qualifying again, it may well be a different result. The Ferrari performed better in the slower corners though, but the W15 made the difference apparently in the fast turn 9 and the final turn 14, where Hamilton had better grip, and that really helped him down the acceleration, because that's the last corner, down that main straight. And on Sunday, Mercedes surprised again with their competitive pace, and truly this result was not conditioned by a notable difference in strategy or any mistake by Ferrari. In fact, Hamilton and Leclerc played pretty much the same race strategy, and Russell and Sainz had the same, and Mercedes were basically simply quicker. Especially, you had a very solid Lewis Hamilton performance and George Russell, with Russell taking the lead after a superb start. Hamilton, on the other hand, he stayed close to the rear of Norris at the beginning, and although he was just about outside the DRS zone, he was able to keep the two Ferraris behind him. So the strategies are there in Spain, and I think it's really significant, and I think it's something that we're a tad surprised at. Mercedes is faster than Ferrari. Are Ferrari now the fourth fastest car? I guess we'll have to see going into Austria and Great Britain, especially with our preview coming at some point tomorrow evening. Thank you very much. And let us know who you think's going to be fastest in Austria. Could it be McLaren? They've gone well there. Lando got his first podium there. Verstappen's won it quite a few times. Hamilton's won it, albeit on the last lap on one occasion against Nico Rosberg. He's won it as well. Valtteri Bottas has even won it at the season opener in 2020, would you believe? If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, give us a subscribe. Hit that notification button if you want to. Make sure you never miss a video. We pretty much do at least one, if not more, videos every day. We've got Formula 1, Rally, Touring Car, very occasionally IndyCar, because I'm only one person. We do the odd bit of gaming as well. We will speak to you soon. Thank you very much. If you made it to the end, you're a legend. If you made it to the end and give us a like, you are a F1 multiple world champion in our eyes. Speak to you soon.